Hi, my name is Ginger Broderick, and I'm the host of Ginger New York TV show. You're watching Manhattan Neighborhood Network, and we're taping a show today here at our studios on West 59th Street. We have a great surprise for you today. Fabulous, exciting, famous, star, New York Giants, Super Bowl champion. Do you know who I'm talking about? It's Howard Cross. Hey, Howard, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming in. Well, we were talking earlier about your sports career as a professional football player. Tell us a little bit more about your life, growing up. What was it like growing up in Alabama?
It was cool, we grew up, we had a farm, probably worked about 450 acres of land.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I know it was a small town, maybe.
Yeah, it was a
3,
very small town.
Yeah.
If you drive through my town, you're probably related to me. Mm-hmm. So it's one of those things, no stoplights, no anything.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those things where you grow up, we all have a football in our hands when we grow up, and we play basketball and baseball. Some of my grandfather's cousins were in the Negro Leagues, so they all wanted me to play baseball. I wound up playing football in a small high school in the South and basketball. I ran track and studied hard. I wanted to be an astronaut because I figured that's the furthest I can get away from that farm because it was a lot of work. But, because I was getting to be very tall, and I do mean tall for astronaut standards, there was no way for me ever to fly. Yeah.
Right. I had a guest on here earlier who was a basketball player from St. John's University when I was in college, and his daughter is 5'11".
Wow.
Yeah, she's very tall at the age of 11.
Wow,
and
God bless
really
her.
has 2 options, modeling and basketball. So I was wondering if that might be the same thing for
my kids. Well, my daughter right now, I'm trying to get her into golf because she's such a great athlete. And I think it's funny because, the softball coach is like, well, we want her on the travel team. The basketball coaches, we want her on the travel team. The tennis coach is like, why is she playing tennis? And now she wants to play lacrosse. I'm like, please play golf. I need someone to play with so I can get out of the house.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. On the media side, golf is the most difficult sport, to telecast. So, it's very challenging because that ball goes up and you focus in the camera and dealing with the lights and the sun. And
I love it. I think it's awesome. I don't know if TV or radio or anything will ever give the actual awesomeness of the game of golf. I don't think people really get the whole, everybody tries to play golf. A lot of athletes try to play golf, and what happens is, I studied martial arts, I was a marksman, I can do a lot of things. Mm-hmm. Golf is a, total, I don't know how to explain it, it's a tuning fork to your soul. Mm-hmm. Once you do it, your whole body's in alignment to do something perfect, and you can't do it over and over again because we're not perfect beings or we're not machines. Mm-hmm. So it takes an instant for your body to do everything right to hit a golf ball.
Yeah, I took a lot of golf lessons at the Chelsea
Piers.
Yes, What a great place to take lessons. Yeah. I really enjoyed it. It was pretty cold during the wintertime. Yeah, so way up there, and you're not protected by anything, but it is a very exciting day. And it was amazing to me, a lot of people don't take golf lessons.
Well, a lot of people go out and play, but they don't take lessons because they don't really understand the concept. When I first started to play, I can remember it clear as day. I was playing at somebody's charity or some tournament or some event. I had rented clubs or borrowed clubs from the clubhouse. They were too short.
Is this after your football career?
This was while I was playing.
Oh, wow.
And it was raining. And I thought to myself, I will never play this game. And the caddy kept talking to me. And he was the one who taught me it's a tuning fork to your soul. He goes, when everything's right in your body, the ball's going to do what it's supposed to do. And that's when you're going to think you can play.
Right.
I'm like, whatever. Socrates. And literally, I hit one shot. And I thought to myself, if I had my own clubs, I could play. Instead of thinking, I need lessons, I thought, if I had my own clubs, so you buy clubs.
Yeah.
Then you buy better clubs. Then you buy better clubs. And you read books. But what you really need is lessons.
Yeah, I was a swimmer, and so I took a lot of swim training, and that was just a natural thing for me to do when I went into golf, and I and I improved so much by watching, video analysis and such. But as I started to play, I was so amazed at the number of people that don't take lessons.
Nobody takes lessons. It's the most amazing thing. I mean, some of the great players take lessons. When you see guys like Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson and, Rory McIlroy, they have golf coaches and instructors. They even have sports psychiatrists that walk around, which I think is amazing.
Yeah.
But when you see this, you should know that if the best guys in the world need a coach, you need a coach to play.
I'm surprised that you're able to play another sports, say when you're involved with pro football.
I did everything when I played football.
Oh, isn't that interesting?
I played basketball too much.
Oh.
I did martial arts training. I just, your body just doesn't have enough time, so I was trying to enjoy as much of it as I could. The football just beats you down so bad.
Right. How do you stay in shape now?
I have kids that play every sport, so I'm constantly chasing them and, demonstrating if it's basketball, how to dribble, how to shoot. If it's baseball, I got them in the batting cages. I'm filling ground balls with them. If it's football, we're running and doing every drill. It's something constantly. I'm just so glad if they're playing lacrosse. I know nothing about lacrosse, and I can sit there and, veg out for like an hour while they practice.
What about yoga? Any
yoga? I've tried it. I have a great friend. She's her kids at their house all the time. Her husband laughs at me. He goes like, "Don't do it, Howard." I'm like, "I could do it." He goes like, "Trust me, you can't do it." And he's right. You can't do it. It hurts. I mean, I don't have the flexibility in my shoulders to be able to do yoga. Outside of that, everything else I could probably do it, but my shoulders are not made for. You don't see guys with shoulders this wide doing yoga. Yeah. If you do, I want to meet one.
But I heard that you guys took ballet lessons. No,
No, that's Swanee. Swanee did that back when he played with the Steelers. He took ballet lessons. I mean, a lot of us dance, and we grew up dancing. I think Swan did ballet. We'll just show you the sign of the times. When I grew up, we were break dancing, so it's different world, different era. Swanee's a little more cultured than we are, but it's pretty cool. I probably would have got beat up if I'd have took ballet lessons.
Got it. That's great. And when back in Alabama, when you were playing all these different sports, what made you decide to select football over, say, basketball?
Ooh, good question. When you're like deep south trying to figure out what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, I was the first kid from my school, maybe even from the region, to go to a major college to play sports.
Good for you.
I can remember distinctly playing football, and I was thinking, I was warming up for basketball one season, my junior year, and all these coaches showed up out of nowhere. I'm thinking like, wow, they want me to play basketball. This is great. Turns out they were all football coaches.
Oh, wow.
So every school in the nation was following through, trying to get my attention, trying to go, we heard a lot about you. And then out of nowhere, basketball schools started to show up. But there were so many football schools right away. The basketball schools started to show up, but by the time they started all to show up, and it was all of them, it was signing day for football. So do I forego the football and wait, or do I take it? I think I made the right choice of taking the football. I would be a guard in basketball. I wouldn't be John Starks was a good friend of mine, and when you see John Starks in the Knicks, you think John Starks is this tiny little guy, play with Patrick. John Starks is my height. Wow. So it's all perspective.
That's great. Was there any other school besides the University of Alabama that you considered playing?
I considered a lot of schools. I thought some of the West Coast schools like UCLA and SC were very tempting. The Florida schools were kind of cool and that wanted to go there. If you can tell, I wanted to be somewhere where it was warm. I didn't consider any school where I thought it would snow.
Oh, interesting.
That was out. I'm not a cold weather person, and it turns out I play in New York, of
right,
course.
yeah, I would say it would be difficult. I was going to ask
It was
what
hilarious. It was very hilarious. So it was fun. Alabama was a great selection.
That's great. And then you got drafted by the New York Giants. Was there any other consideration for other teams at that time?
When you're getting drafted, you really don't have any choice. They pick you. You don't pick them. Victor Cruz will be one of those guys who was undrafted, and he had a chance to go out and visit with other teams. The Giants were the only team to actually offer him a contract. So, again, when you're being selected by a team, you want to give that team your best effort so that, you want to make them look as smart as possible. And they look like with me, they looked like they were really smart. I played 13 years. I started all those games, so they think like a 6th-round pick. We're geniuses. Yeah. So it's kind of funny just how it works.
Was it a difficult transition for you to move up north? Because I had a difficult transition moving from the Midwest. I cried every day for a year. I still tell everybody the story. You know?
I think the only real big transition for me was like, you know, I grew up in a small town. Even my college is a small town community. Coming up here, you learn things very quickly. I remember the first thing that happened that was significant was my car got stolen.
Oh boy.
And I was like, you're at a restaurant, come out, the car's not there. And I'm like, that's odd, I thought I parked right here. They're like, oh, they stole your car. I'm like, who stole my car? They're like, if you knew who stole it, it wouldn't be stolen. I'm like, okay, good point, didn't know that. So that, going through the process, learned about insurance. The other major thing was it snowed my first year.
Yeah, I would say that you would be so prone to injury if you didn't grow up with it.
Injury, it snowed. I couldn't get out of the house. I'm like, I called the stadium. I was like, hey, it's snowing, so when's the next practice? They're like, in 20 minutes, you better get here now.
Are you serious?
And I was like, I didn't have boots. I didn't have gloves. I had nothing to clean the snow off my window.
How funny.
And I went outside and I tried to figure out how to get the snow off. And they held practice for me. When I came in, they all started applauding and laughing. They're like, how's the snow? I'm like, I'm fine. They're like, you're 20 minutes late. I'm like, I'm sorry, I didn't know. I'm driving really slow to come in. They're like,
that's
crying. I thought it was so funny.
Yeah. Have you adapted to the weather now here?
Well, no. I still don't, I don't go skiing. I don't go ice fishing. I don't do anything that remotely.
Ice climbing.
I don't do anything that remotely looks like cold weather. When I go on vacation, I want a beach or a golf course. I don't want anything to do with cold. My kids don't ski or snowboard. And everybody's like, we're going skiing, we're taking your kids. I'm like, no, you're not. Don't even get involved. Okay. I don't have anything to do with it. Not that I don't think that's a great way to live and good for you guys. I'm not going to Vail. I'm not going to Aspen. I'm not anti anything, but cold weather is just not my deal.
What's your favorite sport outside of football?
Golf.
Golf.
I can watch golf.
I was expecting baseball, but
no,
yeah.
I can watch golf. I can play golf. I tell kids all the time. Kids always ask me, I'm like, when you are able to control your body the way golf demands it, you'll get it. And that's what everybody's trying to do. They're trying to have a perfect moment with an imperfect vessel.
Yeah. No, I'm frustrated with it. I mean, I like the water. Yeah, that's interesting. You've now been outside of pro sports, what, 20 years?
No, 10 years.
10 years.
11 years.
11 years.
Sometime, I don't know.
Yeah. Do you have any political aspirations?
Oh, no.
No?
Absolutely not. Anytime someone starts...
Everybody loves you.
Yeah, but they ask questions about your life that you don't need to ask. Okay. If being a politician was about being a politician and trying to do the right thing by people, I would do it. If it's about where were you on this night? Who do you know? Who did you date? What did you do in a previous life? And not that I have anything to hide. I just don't think it's right that they ask these guys all these questions about their lives when, what they really want to know is, can this guy actually, help and lead, whether it's a town, whether it's a city, whether it's a state, whether it's a country. How can you actually lead if they only care about, you have something that we consider discretion? And if you have something that we consider discretion, then that makes you a bad person. And I think that's the worst thing. No one's actually winning because they're winning. They're winning because I have less to hide than someone else.
Right.
That's a ridiculous way to be. That's a very ridiculous way to become elected.
Yeah. See, I work as a CPA, so I deal with the financial aspects for a lot of people, and there's a lot of things that are private, and no one needs to know. And that's my feeling on politics as well. What about any chance of you writing a book, a memoir about your life?
A memoir about my life. If I write a book, I'd write a book called Negotiating with Terrorists. Yeah, it'd be conversations with your children. I think it would be a funny book. It'd be a lot. That's kind of my personality anyway. I'd write something about, the things that we deal with at home and how we're constantly negotiating with them. And, the first story would be like, they have hostages. And it would be like when the baby's born, how everybody's hostage to the baby. Some families can't make any noise. Some families make a lot of noise. Some families, you can't eat what you want to eat because the kid won't eat it. I've had kids in my house, 3 years old. Oh, Sally doesn't eat that. I was like, well, Sally's going to be hungry. But in everybody else's house, Sally gets to make the room. Like, Sally's a baby, and she's 3. If she got a car, she can drive to the grocery store. I'm going to get her something else. But my mom, she got to eat. So I have a different look at kids and the way things go. Like, I remember making my kids say yes, sir, and no, sir, at an early age. My wife being from Florence, Italy, saying, what are you, the Castafo? What are you doing? You shouldn't do that. And now she's like, your kids are so well-mannered. They're so well-behaved and so polite. They're so courteous. My wife's like, yeah, it took me a long time to get them to be that way. I'm like, okay.
How old are your children?
They're 10.
They're 10.
A boy and a
Set
girl.
of twins?
Yep. They're awesome.
Yeah, and the name's Howard?
Howard III and Isabella.
Isabella?
Yep, Howard's the only American in the family.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
interesting.
everybody else is, Gabriele, Alberto, and I got so many names, I can't even remember all of them. They're like, every name's almost Italian, so it's pretty funny.
How did you meet your wife?
My wife met me, and I met her because she was a state director of a liquor company, and I, for Bacardi Liquors, and I used to see, her crew out all the time. And she used to tell me to leave her people alone because they needed to work. And eventually we got paired together as a group. And she was like, why do you always disrupt work? I'm like, I'm not disrupting work. You're in a bar. She's like, ugh, what am I going to do with you? And then eventually, after a year or two, she wore down and she said, if
you grew on her?
Yeah, I grew on her. That's what it said. She's like, I can't get rid of you, so I might as well date you.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Do you have any favorite kind of music that you listen to?
Ooh, favorite kind of music? That would be tough.
AC/DC, Guns N' Roses?
I kind of listen to country music, believe it or not.
Okay.
And the reason why would be, I grew up on gospel music.
Sure.
I got into the cool hip-hop world, a little rock and roll, and one night at the Grammys after party, when they used to have the Grammys here in New York, I happened to be at a bar at a post-Grammy party, and a guy took interest and spoke to me and asked me a lot of questions about my family. He asked me questions about where I was from, where I went to church, and I thought it was kind of odd that this little person was asking me all these questions. And I'm like, well, that's great and nice to meet you. And he goes, well, I'm Clint Black.
Oh, wow.
And he took
How
me around and he
exciting.
introduced me to Roy Rogers.
Oh, fun.
I think maybe Alan Jackson. And I'm like, if this guy's so nice, then everybody else had an entourage, you couldn't get close to him.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here with legends in this industry. And I'm like,
sure.
get to know them. They're nice people. And
That's great.
you get to see them, they don't hesitate to, hey man, how you doing? What's going on? It's kind of cool. Not that everyone else isn't like that. It's just that, I watch things today, especially when you have children, I think about how I want them to be. And I want them to be open and friendly and respectful. And I see a lot of that. And not everybody's like that. And it has nothing to do with country or not country. It's some gospel artists who I love that you can't talk to them because they're above that moment. And there's some gospel artists that are, they'll call you and make sure you're okay. So there's everybody. And I'd like for my kids to be closer to the good people if I could.
Are your children involved with music? Have they taken any music lessons, singing, piano?
All
sports?
My wife is in charge of all that. My daughter is an actress, so she does a little stage production in town. So she's been out on a couple auditions, but my son is not singing anything. You ought to see him try to dance. It's embarrassing. I don't know whose kid that is. But, I love him. He's a good-looking boy, but he won't be a dancer or a singer.
How tall is he now?
He is. He wears a size 10 shoe at 10 years old. He's got big hands, and my daughter's 2 inches taller than him. And every day he's depressed because he hasn't started to grow to pass her yet.
Any favorite baseball teams?
Baseball, I guess it would be the Yankees. I see them all the time. I see the guys all the time, and Jeter and everybody in different spots. So, I follow the Yankees. I think Girardi's doing a good job, and it's a lot of fun, when you see them and they're winning. It's great for the city.
Their coach is from Illinois, not too far away from where I live, so we're really proud of him. He's a small town guy too. You went to University of Alabama, and I understand that you are in the Alabama Hall of Fame. Congratulations. That's just a recent, last couple of years?
Yeah, State has a when you go down to sports Hall of Fames and states, Alabama has like 15 of the top, I think, like 15 of the top 100 athletes in our nation's history. Like Jesse Owens was from Alabama, Joe Louis is from Alabama, Hank Aaron and Willie Mays, both are Alabama guys, and it's like
Carl Lewis.
Yeah, Carl Lewis is from the state. So you get all these guys, and it's crazy to see the heritage and the history of the state and all these guys that actually were there, and what they've accomplished in their lives. And from a sports perspective, it's pretty impressive. One of my favorite athletes in history was Satchel Paige, the pitcher. He pitched into his 50s, I believe, when he went to the majors. Finally broke into the majors from the Negro League. And, Satchel Paige is like a great historic person, and he's from Alabama. So it's cool to be a part of something, be a part of a state moment that's so big. I don't really count the Auburn guys, but they're in the state too, and there are a lot of those guys.
And the civil rights movement came from Alabama too, right?
Yeah.
I was growing up in the Midwest around that time. I never understood what was going on, but I did certainly after I moved here and became an adult. So I think it would be very difficult, and it's great, that there's a lot.
It's a strange thing if you think about it. When you think about the civil rights movement, what they all fought for, what they were marching for, what they were doing all these different things for. Civil rights is civil rights. It has nothing to do with color. It has to do with everyone having an equal opportunity, whether, and I know people are not always fond of whether it's men, whether it's women, whether it's religious, whether it's sexual preferences. They were fighting for an equal opportunity the entire time. And when you're prejudiced, it doesn't just cover black to white, or Christian to Jew, or Christian to Muslim, or Jewish to Muslim. It covers everybody. People inside your own race are prejudiced against things in your own race. So I just think that it's a tough thing to overcome, and our country's going to continue to deal with it. But it's not because they're not trying. It's just that there are always going to be a few people who they just don't know any better. My favorite comment that you'll always hear that's an insult is when you hear a person call someone articulate. I'm like, do you use it on what group of people? And they are like, they have to think about it. Like you'll hear someone say that their lady's very articulate, like what, women can't speak? If it's a black person, oh, he's very articulate. Black people can't speak. If you hear it from someone's Asian, they can't speak. So a guy tried to trick me the other day. He goes like, I've used it a number of times. Blacks, white, women. He goes, I've used it, it doesn't matter. I'm like, really? Were they athletes? He goes,
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they were. I'm like,
Wow.
So you think athletes shouldn't be able to speak? I'm like, so think about your compliment. And he's like, fair, you're right.
That's great. Howard, do you have any future goals
Ooh.
for what you are right now?
Future goals. I would like to be retired very soon, but that's not going to happen. A real future goal, number one, is to raise my children to be good kids, good, hopefully God-fearing, good kids. Not to offend anyone, but yes, to be good Christian kids, grow up in a manner that once they leave me, I don't have to worry about what's going to happen to them. I don't want to have a moment in my life where you always hear this thing, it's 10 o'clock, do you know where your children are?
Yeah.
I think that's the funniest thing in the world when I hear that. I'm like, because if it's 10 o'clock, if your kids are not old enough to be out at 10, they should be home. And I guess in this part of the country, that's a big thing. Because where I grew up, if it got dark, you were home.
Right.
And I can remember when I was, senior in high school, I went to the prom. I had to be back at 11:30. My date's like, well, I can be out. I'm like, well, look, I'm gonna let you go with your friends. I told her dad, like, I'm very sorry, I won't be bringing her back. He goes like, why not? I gotta be home at 11:30. He goes, really? I'm like, yes, sir. He goes, well, you better make sure you're home because I wouldn't want to mess with your dad. I'm like, exactly. So it's one of those things that I'm that way with my children.
Right.
I'm that way with anyone's children. So my goals are to make sure that my kids grow up to be good people.
That's
I mean, everything else, it'll take care of itself. We'll make money, we'll lose money, we'll make more money, we'll be healthy, God willing, and everything else. But our kids are truly, in my life, that'll be my legacy. Regardless of, I could have played 50 years, I could have, won 30 Super Bowls. My kids are my legacy.
That's really great. That's really.
We have one rule in our house, and that's don't embarrass mom and dad.
Oh, interesting.
Don't embarrass mom and dad. So if you're doing something and you think that this is going to embarrass your mom and your dad, just don't do it. So they kind of, if something goes on, they're like, okay, look, we can't do this, guys. And they, at this age, at 10, they understand it. My hope is that they carry it on for the rest of their life. They can teach their own families that.
That's really great, because I've have a friend that has had difficulty with her youngest child, drunken driving and incidences with the police, and it's just that she's not.
I love to hear they say he's rebelling or she's rebelling, or you just have to take a lot of time with them, and it's they once they start getting the whole "I love you" moment, it becomes okay. I don't want to do anything to hurt you, and every kid's different. I will give you that. That's why I say. You negotiate with terrorists. You don't know what you're going to get. Yeah. But my view is stay on the same line constantly and let them try to figure out how to get around the line. It's like, here's the line. We're on it. Stay on it.
Well, we're going to have to be wrapping up pretty soon. And I was just wondering if there's any last thoughts that you might have, any words of wisdom?
Words of wisdom. That's funny. Final thoughts from Howard Cross. Let's think. If there's anything that if this interview would do anything or have anything, just remember, enjoy your life. Enjoy it every second of every day if you can. Work as hard as you possibly can, and have as much fun as you possibly can. Because hey, I got a lot of friends, and thank God they're good people, and they go home all the time.
That's funny.
And you try to enjoy every minute with them.
That's great. Well, thank you very much for spending your time for us today. It's been a very exciting show for me and the crew, and I just want to thank you again for stopping in. I hope you come back.
We'll come back sometime.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, everyone, I want to thank you very much for joining. Wasn't that fun talking to Howard Cross? We see him on the TV and hear him on the radio. And we actually have him in the studio today learning about his life as a football player and as a dad. Yeah. Congratulations. Thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.